So you and I find it very difficult to really stick to anything. We start something and then never follow through. I've been thinking about this lately and I have thoughts on why this keeps happening and some of the things you can do to help with this. So here's a bit of an explanation. So when we're going to school, which as kids, that's where we spend a whole lot of our time, we're given a very specific framework or guidelines on how to succeed. And what that looks like is you have the authoritative figure or the master, which is in the form of a teacher, and they're telling you what you need to know, what you need to learn, or what you need to pass or succeed in school. And really you have very short, strict timelines, which is usually the form of a week, right? You learn a lesson or a few lessons, and then at the end of the week, you have to take a test on those topics. And then you either pass or fail, and really you're only given a week to decide if you suck at that thing that you learned throughout that week. And if after a week, if you fail that test, well, then you're a failure at that thing. And maybe you'll have a chance to redo or retake that test or make something up. But a lot of the time you really just move on to the next thing, right? You try once, you fail, the class moves on, and you have to move on to the next subject, and then you just repeat that process. And so eventually you learn that every week we're tested and it's decided whether we suck at a subject or not. And instead of actually learning a subject, you learn how to pass a test. You don't learn how to learn. In life, there aren't many of these very strict tests. Maybe if you try a new skill and you're able to make a little bit of money from that skill, maybe that's your test to tell you if you are good at that thing or not, or some other type of criteria or standards that you hold yourself to. But really, we're taught to hold ourselves to these school standards from when we're 4 or 5 to up until we're 18 and even into college. And even sometimes through college, because a lot of college is just more of that. And we're taught that's what learning is. After that whole process, you're supposed to know things now and have an education. But what happens when we're not in school anymore and we want to learn a skill or be good at something? Can we apply the same exact standards to hold ourselves to? Well, I don't really think we can, and I don't think it works. It certainly doesn't work for me, and I don't think it works for many of you either. And so I think one of the big problems is we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be good at a certain thing by a very specific and strict timeline, because that's what we're told we're supposed to do. Because you were only given that specific amount of time to learn that skill. But that's not really how it works in the real world. We don't have these authoritative figures telling us what we need to know or what we need to learn. Maybe at a job, but not at a hobby or a skill that we're teaching ourselves. In those cases, the same rules do not apply. So what is one lesson to learn from this? Well, you're just going to suck at certain things, especially if you're trying something new. And the sooner we accept that, the easier it becomes, and you can plan for that. If you're starting a new skill or you're trying to learn something new, you can say to yourself, maybe I'll give myself a year or two to decide if this thing is really worth pursuing or continue with. It doesn't have to be that long, but give yourself some freedom with time. And yeah, maybe that's a long time, but we just have to make some adjustments. Maybe do some research on that skill or thing you're trying to learn before actually starting. Maybe don't invest a whole lot of money up front. But the overall theme here is to give yourself enough time and don't hold yourselves to the same standards that we learned through childhood and even into adulthood, which was school or structured education. So what is the difference between you and an expert that actually developed the skill you're trying to learn and became really good at a specific thing? I think they just accepted that they're going to suck when they first start something. And you just have these high expectations of yourself and of the way you're going to learn things when you first start. Those people don't give up as easily. They give themselves a lot more time than you do, and I really think that's it. Everyone sucks at something when they're first starting. That has to be one of the rules of the universe that I think we just have to accept. Sure, maybe there's exceptions to the rules and there might be outliers, but generally speaking, most of us are going to just suck at things when we first start. So that's it.